WarsawJS.
Hi guys, nice to see you here on WarsawJS 106 version homemade. I hope you will enjoy this video, and I really appreciate that you are here, because you can be anywhere in the world, but you decide to be here with me. So hello again. I will talk about video optimization and localization with machine learning and bash services. In general, presentation was shown first time at Warsaw AWS Community Day, then on WarsawJS. Then I have some internal talk with it. So let's say it's version 4 of this presentation, so it's fixed and quite, I would say, Polish. So let's talk about me at the beginning. I'm technical consultant at FreeSky Dev. I'm AWS community builder, creator of DevOps newsletter, and blogger. So also you can find all this talk with explanation, code, and so on my blog. So let's start it with agenda. First, we in general talk about need of video localization services. Then we think how we can build that kind of solution by our own, let's say as homegrown solution. Then we have AWS CDK implementation without live coding. However, I will also explain what CDK is in general. And at the end, you should have Q&A session. Unfortunately, in that form, it's impossible. So I'm waiting for comments. So, as some summary, if you're really busy, AWS do not provide video localization services. Fortunately, we can build it by our own. AWS CDK is quite neat, and in case of CI stack delivered by Amazon, it's weird, and I couldn't recommend it to my customer as a basic solution. So let's start from the need of video localization services. As you may see, there is some comic, cartoon, which I draw myself, so it's quite weird. However, let's imagine the situation that you have some company, and this company is international, has a lot of different facilities around the world, but in general, the main language for this corporate will be English as a standard language. So also inside this company, there is a group of silos, however we can call it, which is responsible for delivering trainings and great materials for different use cases, different solutions, in general, a lot of different videos. But someday, the, let's say, community manager of this group received the information that some another facilities needs the trainings material. And the hook here was that they doesn't understand English. Let's imagine the situation that they are from Switzerland, so they prefer French, German, Italian than English. So they need to have it in their languages because it will be easier for them. And yeah, organization can buy tool like Adobe to just add voice and subtitles to the videos. The thing is that if you're a corporate, you need to wait a lot for that kind of purchase, because it's, even if it's not very expensive, it's recurrent. You need to pass all this long journey from finance to approvals, and it's very time consuming, and you need to do that now or in next week, and in most cases it's impossible. So the community manager decided to call some guys with mustache and just ask for help. So the guy said, okay, I probably can solve it in some way. A guy was related with AWS, so the obvious thing was that he started looking there. And as you can see, AWS do not provide localization services, however, provide more than 200 fully featured services around the world. So you can use different blocks for translation, moving videos, machine learning, and things like that. Unfortunately, not for localization itself. As you can see here, there is no services. So, as Lee Gilmore said, don't focus on search, start building, because building is an essential skills of learning clouds. And as you know, this presentation was shown first at Community Day, where all those people below was present. That's why it was fun there then. Okay, so back to the topic. What tool we will be using here in this presentation? First, we will have AWS Transcribe, which is an automatically covered speech-to-text solution. So you can just pass some video, and based on this video, AWS will provide transcript. So text in some format, it could be str or VVT, whatever you choose. Then we have AWS Translate, which just translate the text to another text in different language. At third, you have Amazon Poly, which deploy high quality, let's say natural sound, let's say human voice in dozens of languages. Again, it's produced the language. It's quite similar to, I would say, Polish Ivona long time ago. It's a bit better. You can choose different voices, different type of voice. However, still you can see that it's, let's say, not human really. And as an engine of our processing, we'll be using MoviePy, which is a main, I mean, maybe not main, but it's very popular solution for adding and manipulating the video. So next, I will describe a bit of this whole flow, which we'll be using. So first, we have the operator, which will push the video file to some S3 bucket. This action will trigger some event, which in this case will be starting transcribe job. This transcribe job will receive this file, make the transcription, and upload the result to another S3 bucket. S3 bucket will send a notification to SNS, which will notify the operator. Operator will do some review, and after this review, upload fixed transcript to another S3 bucket, so the first one. This bucket will trigger another action, and this action will be batch processing. Inside this batch process, we will translate the transcript and add poly layer to this video. Then we upload ready file in MP4 format and send again notification to our operator that operation is done. If you are interested in solution design or in AWS services, you can see two things which could be changed. First, we are using this review step. You can ask why. In general, it slows the process because sometimes someone needs to click or upload the file. It's, let's say, manual work, which adding more complexity to the whole process. That's true. Unfortunately, the thing is that transcribe isn't, let's say, ideal. We had the case where transcribe produced something like Gojira from the word like Gojira, and that's because the speaker wasn't, let's say, native English speaker. The second situation was where we bombed China for some reason without any context, with some different pronunciation. It could happen. So to avoid that kind of situation, it's just better to have, let's say, manual or review done by some normal, regular person, I would say. I mean, it's possible to train some machine learning model like, not Hugging Face. It's possible to do that. Whisper. It's possible to do that with let's say, custom model. Unfortunately, it's costly and not very time efficient, and in our case, the time was the key here. So we decided to just use manual, let's say, work to review the files. The second thing is why we are using AWS Batch. If we can use Lambdas, which will be faster and easier to set up, that's again true. Unfortunately, AWS will terminate Lambda function if it will be running longer than 15 minutes. That's because how the Lambda was designed. If we would like to work around this situation, we need to use batch. We just can proceed longer files, longer videos without termination, and also it's more flexible as we can build longer and in bigger images. So with that in mind, we have almost live demo. It couldn't be live during the presentation, but it's recorded. But first, I will describe what CDK is. In general, CDK is AWS Cloud Development Kit, which is something like SDK for building cloud infrastructure, which in general use TypeScript components to build CloudFormation templates, which will be applied to the AWS. The thing is that it's based on CloudFormation at the end, so it will be a bit slower than Terraform, for example. So here we have the demo. Yeah, okay. Let's adjust the quality here, first one. Okay, so as you see, we init the project. I remove the, let's say, boiler code, which is not needed for us. And then slowly I'll try to type all our imports or needed dependency for our project. As you can see, it's regular JavaScript, let's say TypeScript approach. The thing is that if you compare it to CloudFormation or Terraform, you need to know what component you will be using. Here you need, I mean, if you are using regular infrastructure as a code tool, you can just use it. Here you need to import a lot of different things, which is not easy because, as you can see, Batch, for example, is in some kind of alpha stage, so it's not in standards library. You need to install it additionally, so it adds some kind of complexity to the workflow. So if you are a developer, it's fine, but if you are rather, let's say, operation person, it could be, let's say, could be annoying for you. So as you can see here, again, we're using JavaScript, TypeScript, but JavaScript approach. We are using path, and we'll be reading our Lambda function. We're using free Lambda function here, and we will read them from file system to keep it in one project. And that's the easiest way to keep it everything in one place, let's say. And then we have variable like myVPC, which is a ID of default VPC in our AWS environment. The thing is that we will be looking for it because we would like to have this VPC as an object in our code. And to do that, we need to know VPC ID, even if it will be the default one. So that in mind, we are starting using regular classes in TypeScript. We have a constructor. We can use some props as well. So we can pass the variables between the stacks. It's quite helpful if we have more than one stack in general, but in our case, it will be only one without any passing variables. Okay, so here we have tags, regular tags for our resources, which will be applied to all things which can use tags in general. Then we have email address, which will be a subscription mail, the email where the notification will be sent, and it's a parameter, so it will be passed via CLI. Then we have this method which I talked before, which will be about getting existing VPC as an object to our infrastructure. Here we have a very nice thing that we can use some kind of default parameters for our for our S3 bucket. In that case, we can specify all of them in one place and then add them to our bucket in this three dot notation, which is quite handy because in general, if you are using CloudFormation, you need to specify all of them manually with all the parameters. If you are using Terraform, you can use the dynamic block or make count. but still it's a bit different solution. And here is just a really simple use case where we are using placeholder like account and the name which we would like to have. So we are building in that manner the unique bucket name. Okay, so here we have a role. As you may know or not, AWS role is essential part of IAM management in AWS. So as you can see here, we'll be granting Lambda function. I mean, the role can be assumed by Lambda function, and it will be responsible for triggering this TypeScript job. This role will be attached to the event. And as you can see, we are using inline policy. So the role and the policies will be, let's say, in one place. In general, we can split it into multiple objects. However, in my opinion, it's much more clear if you are using that kind of, let's say, structure, because we have whole role in one place. So here we are using S3 things, logging to debug the function. In general, I think it's quite useful, especially when we are new to lambdas. Here we have lambda function, nothing very special. We have runtime, handler, role, which we described before. We have code, which we import from local file system, and we have environment variables, the way we are passing the variables to our function. Then we have event, which will be listed on object created event type with some particular suffix. It's nice because in case of uploading different type of files, we just don't send the notification. And here we have topic, SNS topic. We just need to create that to send the notification. We should be sending here in the next step. Like if we receive the transcribe in new bucket, we will send a notification to particular email address, which we specify as a CLI parameter. Okay, now we are building, let's say, or defining the code commit repository. In this code commit, we will have the code of our batch processing. And as you can see, we upload code from directory because code is also part of this directory. I mean, this project directory. And the thing is that we need to use, I mean, we don't need, but it's quite handy to use this initial code commit. I mean, code commit.code from directory, because it will upload our code as an initial code to our repository. So we don't need to interact it with it manually, I mean with git command. However, it works only once. So if we deploy stack once and we deploy it again, the code will be the same, I mean, after changing the code. So it works only once as an initial commit. Next, we are defining the registry for our ECR container, which will be hosting our batch Docker container. And again, if you are taking a look at here, we have auto deletion and removal policy. All those things are done via Lambda at the backend, which was specified by creators of this method on CDK side. So it's worth to check if the method will do what we would like to get, and that we in some way can get some different results from our let's say processing. I mean, we will have more lambdas than we expect. Like here we have one additional lambda just for this policy removal. Then we have code build role for our code build process. So again, we need to specify whole role with all needed things. So again, it takes a while. As you can see, we grant all code commit action, ECR as well to upload the image, authorization to it, list the images. Probably we can just make it smaller. However, I decided to put everything in one role to just make the video a bit shorter in our case. Here as well we have, I mean, here we have code build project. So this CI part we need to have project name, source code, which we defined before, the role which we are using, and we have an environment set to privileged. And it's important if you would like to build the Docker image, because that's how the code build works. That if you would like to build the Docker image, you need to have privileged, let's say, service user. I'm not sure here, to build it. It's very similar as we have on Linux machine, that we need to use sudo to use Docker as a, let's say, base layer. And here, as you can see, we have build specs. So this build definition, which we would like to use. We have pre-commits, pre-build, build, and post-build step. Here, as you see, is just regular bash with standard, let's say, string concatenation. And here as well, we can use long version of our ECR registry, like we have account and region, or as you can see below, we can just use registry repository URI as a part of our Docker command, which is quite fast, I would say, to use. So we don't need to care about account region, but we directly get the repository URI. Okay, here we have another Lambda role, which will be used for triggering this build after finishing the code uploading, because in general you can't find something like run Lambda after initial commit. You need to, run build after initial commit. You need to first upload code to the code commit, then create this code build project, and then trigger it. And in my case, I would like to trigger this build during the CDK runtime, let's say. So to do that, I just need to specify this trigger, which will be a Lambda function in general with particular switch, parameter called execute after. As you can see here, we have code build project name and execute after. So if we have code in place and code build project defined, we will trigger it during this CDK runtime. Here we specify the compute environment for our ECR, ECS. Sorry, now in this case it will be Fargate, where we need to use this existing VPC. So the VPC which we are getting at the beginning. And here, that's the place where we need to use this VPC, and it's only one place in general. But yeah, that's how we need to work with it. And then we have queue, just regular component of batch, and the role again as well, because we need to secure everything and make things, let's say, quite consistent with our security, because we would like to grant batch process, for example, permission to do everything in case of some changes in code. I believe that in my case it doesn't happen, but in general, if you have some kind of semi-production system, we just need to limit the IAM role as much as possible to just have more secure environment and sleep better, I would say. So yeah, as you can see, we have a lot of easier things. Yes. And translate and poly, because we'll be using translate and poly from the batch container, because batch have two kind of role which we can assign to it. The role which will be used for triggering the batch, and the role which will be attached to the runtime, let's say. But in our case, I decided to use the same role, but in general, we can also split it into smaller part to be more secure. And here, as you can see, we have some resource management like CPU and memory. And here also, we are using assign public IP is the thing which is needed when we would like to use ECR using Fargate compute type with batch. In different case, we will be unable to connect to ECR and download the image from the ECR. And yeah, as you can see here, we have job role and execution role here. And then we have Lambda. Again, we should be responsible for triggering this batch job after uploading the file to third bucket. So again, we need to wait a second. I can make it a bit faster for you, too fast, but in general, yeah, we just skip the role building. We have another function with very similar statement as we had before. We just specify more environment variables, just to have it in one place. And here we have this event notification, like again, very similar to the previous one with some suffix. And yeah, notification object created. Yes, to be sent into SNS. And that's all in general in case of our implementation. So how the project looks like in code editor. In my case, it will be something like that. You may be a bit confused because the previous example was in VS Code. So VS Code has the plugin which allows us to slow down the typing. I mean, I was able to copy the file, copy the code and paste it with this, let's say, semi-typing manner. But in general, I'm using now Vim as daily basic. So we have assets. In assets, I have code for Python processing and Docker file, and I have also function there. I have events where I store example event of object created to S3 event type, which is just a JSON with different parameters. I have lib. In lib, I have my stack. I have node modules as is TypeScript implementation, and I have test where I have test for my application. It's some kind of unit testing. It's very useful. For example, we can count our lambdas, we can count our amount of our VPC subnets. For example, we can check if all parameters which we expect are defined. So everything is in place for, let's say, our projects. And that's the final result of it. Here's the original version of the video.
AWS is the world's most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud platform. Millions of customers.
Yeah, as you can see, there is some voice in English. There is no subtitles, and here is the case of our translate with this process, let's say, and it will be in Spanish. Oh, sorry.
Esta es la plataforma en la que más completa y ampliamente adoptada del mundo. Millones de clientes confían en AWS para impulsar su infraestructura.
Yeah, so as you can see, there is some subtitles in Spanish, sorry. Then we have voice, which is, as I said, not very natural, but still quite fine, I would say, for mechanic voice generation. So that's the result. In case of any question, you can send me an email. If you scan this QR code, it will be redirected to my repository, so you can find it, play with it, copy. It's free of charge. It's just open source. So thank you for your time, and hope you enjoy this presentation as well as I enjoy recording it. Thank you.